I spent thousands on courses and coaching trying to figure out how to make money as a stay-at-home mom, but nothing seemed to work. All of the experts kept saying, don't bother with Etsy. It's too saturated, too competitive. But thankfully, I didn't listen. Just 9 days after starting my Etsy shop, I made my first sale. And by the end of my first year, I had made over $18,000 selling digital products without ads, without social media, and only working while my kids were sleeping. So what changed everything? In this video, I'm sharing the 13 brutally honest truths that no one tells you as a beginner, but this can lead to you making daily sales. Because one of the biggest reasons new sellers struggle has nothing to do with strategy and everything to do with brutal truth number 1, being willing to be a beginner. I used to shut my laptop and cry, and if anyone knows me, I am a crier. I cry when I'm frustrated, I cry when I'm mad, I cry when I'm sad, I cry when I'm happy. I just cry, and I wasn't crying because I didn't care. I was crying because I needed this to work so bad. I needed to make money from home so that I could continue to afford to stay home with my kids. But I kept telling myself things like, you're going too slow, you're messing it up, nobody's gonna buy this. Eventually, I realized 2 things. 1, I was putting way too much pressure on myself. And 2, the way I was talking to myself was making everything way harder than it needed to be. And now I hear the same things from my students inside of my program, the Sales Sprint. They'll say things like, I'm so slow at Canva, or it's going to take forever to make a sale. And it makes me sad because I know that if they keep talking to themselves this way, they're going to give up before they even give themselves a chance. Imagine you're trying to design something in Canva, a software you've never used before, and someone is leaning over your shoulder saying things like, that looks terrible. No one's going to buy that. Why are you even doing this? You're wasting your time. But that's what most new sellers are doing to themselves with their own thoughts. But you have to remember, you're not bad at this, you're just new. Be patient with yourself. Your first designs might look terrible, and that's okay. There are over 90 million active buyers on Etsy, and I promise you can convince at least one of them to buy your digital product. So be mindful of how you talk to yourself, because if you fail, it won't be because you didn't make any sales. It'll be because you weren't willing to stick with it long enough to get better. But sticking with it gets harder when you don't know brutal truth number 2, which is not all Etsy advice is meant for you. So if you've ever felt confused by all of the advice out there, you are definitely not alone. One person says, niche down. Another says, test multiple ideas. Some swear by Pinterest. Others say, don't even bother. You'll hear, you have to run ads. And other people say, don't waste your money. But the truth is, not all of this advice is meant for you. Some strategies only work if you already have an audience. Some only make sense if you're selling physical products. Other strategies only work if you have an assistant or a team to help you. And then some strategies just don't fit the season of life you're in. Not all of the Etsy advice out there was meant for parents or people working a full-time job or people who are doing this with limited time and energy. I used to second guess everything I was doing because it wouldn't always match up with what the Etsy experts were saying to do. But the moment I stopped chasing everyone else's strategy and started creating my own strategy based on what I could commit to as a homeschooling stay-at-home mom, that's when things finally clicked. So take the advice that serves you and forget about the rest. Because the goal isn't to create a strategy that you can't stay consistent with. The goal is to create a shop that works for you even when you're not working. But even when things are working, there's one thing that still holds so many sellers back, and that brings us to brutal truth number 3. Perfectionism is just fear in disguise. I spent so much time trying to get everything just right. I would redesign the same product over and over again. I would move elements around in Canva for hours only to move everything back where I started. I'd rewrite a product description 5 times, obsess over keywords, and still leave the product in my Etsy drafts folder. It took me a while to realize I wasn't a perfectionist. I was just scared. Scared that someone would look at my shop and think, she has no idea what she's doing. Scared that I put in all of this time and energy, not make any sales, and have to go back to work. And scared that I'd do everything just right and it still just wouldn't work out for me and I'd have nobody or nothing to blame but myself. But I realized perfectionism wasn't helping me. It was trying to protect me from failing, from being judged, from putting myself out there and hearing crickets. But that's all part of the process. You will get a 1-star review. You will upload products that don't get any views. You will get your hopes up when someone favorites your item, but they do not buy it. And yes, it stings, but that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. When I look back, some of my best-selling products started out super messy. The design was basic, the listing photos were boring, and my SEO wasn't great, but I posted them anyways. And I got better because I took action, not because I waited till everything was perfect. The faster you untangle your self-worth from your Etsy stats, the easier it will be for you to make sales because you're no longer creating from fear, you'll start creating from data. And that leads us right into brutal truth number 4. Your Etsy shop is an experiment. One quote that always stuck with me is, you either get the result that you wanted or the lesson you needed. And I love that because it reminds me that even when something doesn't work, it doesn't mean you failed. It means you were supposed to learn something. But I'll be honest, the old me didn't slow down long enough to learn anything. I'd get frustrated, move on to something else, and then wonder why that wasn't working either. And I see the same thing in my students. Some people come into the sales sprint with 50 plus digital products in their shop and less than 10 sales. But instead of slowing down and asking themselves why, they just keep adding more products, hoping the next one will magically take off. But the problem with that is, if you have 50 products that aren't selling, what makes you think adding 50 more products will magically make them start selling? You have to slow down to speed up. And that means you have to slow down and look at what the data is telling you. If you're listing products and you're not getting any views, then you have an SEO problem. Etsy doesn't know who to show your product to. And if you're getting views but no sales, you have a conversion problem. That means your listing photos may not be showing the value of your product. Think about it like this. When a scientist runs an experiment, they don't just toss it out if it fails. They analyze it, they adjust it, they learn from it. That's how I had to start treating my Etsy shop. Each listing became an experiment and each flop offered feedback. And every product I made after that was better because I paid attention. And that's what I see so many new sellers missing. They're moving so fast, chasing that first sale, that they skip over the lessons they need to learn in order to make daily sales. So if your shop isn't performing the way you want it to, look at your data and learn the lesson. Because once you stop guessing, the key is staying consistent. And that's where brutal truth number 5 comes in. Consistency does not mean daily uploads. For a long time, I thought consistency meant constantly creating, always listing new products, always posting, always doing more. And anytime I slowed down, I felt like I was failing. There were times I disappeared from my shop for weeks just because life got busy. My kids needed more of me or my energy was just low. And I'd be so hard on myself thinking that I'd lost all of my momentum. But what I've learned is that consistency isn't about being constant. It's about building something that keeps moving even when you have to pause. Some of my highest revenue months happened after I didn't touch my shop for weeks at a time. And that's because I had built systems that worked with my life, not against it. I talk to students all the time who are putting so much pressure on themselves to post every single day. And I understand that they want to make sales fast, but growth doesn't come from burning yourself out. It comes from showing up in a way that's doable even when life gets hectic. So you have to find your version of consistency, something you can return to even after a tough week. Because it's not about how fast you can go, it's about not disappearing. And the best way to keep showing up, even when life gets messy, is exactly why you need brutal truth number 6. Build habits that make quitting hard. Even though I was making sales in my Etsy shop, there were still so many times I wanted to quit. And it obviously wasn't because Etsy wasn't working, but it was because I wasn't working Etsy consistently. I'd list a few products, obsess over the stats, get discouraged when sales didn't come fast enough, and then disappear for weeks, sometimes months at a time. Then I'd come back, try again, and wonder why it still felt so hard. It wasn't until I stopped relying on motivation and started building habits that things got easier. Because motivation is a feeling, and feelings come and go. But habits show up even when you don't feel like it. I started treating my Etsy shop like brushing my teeth. You don't need to do it perfectly, you just need to do it regularly. regularly. Even working 20 minutes a day during nap time doing simple things like uploading a product, updating my title, batch creating listing photos, all of that adds up faster than you think. It's those little repeatable actions that build momentum. And once I created a routine that fit into my life, quitting didn't even feel like an option anymore. Not because I never got discouraged, but because the habit was stronger than my doubt. So if Etsy is feeling overwhelming right now, do not try to overhaul everything at once. Just ask yourself, what's the smallest thing I can do consistently? Then build from there, because the more you can show up on autopilot and build Etsy into your daily routine, the easier it'll be to stay consistent even on days when you don't feel like working on your Etsy shop. But consistency isn't enough if you're pouring all of your energy into the wrong things, which leads us to brutal truth number 7, value beats algorithm tricks. My very first digital product, one I created with no design background, zero Etsy experience, and no social media following, has made over $15,000. Not because I hacked the algorithm, not because I found some secret keyword strategy, but because I focused on creating value. I asked myself, what would help someone? Not what's trending, not what gets the highest search volume, and definitely not how can I make a quick buck. I created something that solved a real problem. It was simple, it was specific, it wasn't overloaded with random pages just to look like more. It was useful and people could tell. And that's what most new sellers miss. They're so focused on getting found in search results and making their first sale super fast that they forget the most important part. What happens after someone finds you? Because even if Etsy puts your product in front of the perfect person, it won't even matter if they don't feel like your product was created specifically for them to solve the problem they're dealing with. My bestsellers didn't blow up because of clever tricks. They sold because they were intentional, because they did what they promised, because the person on the other side of the screen could instantly see the value in my product. So yes, use keywords, learn SEO. That's all part of the process, but do not build your business around trying to beat the algorithm. Build it around helping people. Because when you focus on helping people, something unexpected happens, and that leads us to brutal truth number 8. Etsy will grow you, not just your income. Now, when I first started selling digital products, I thought I was just gonna make some extra cash, pay off a credit card, cover groceries, maybe afford a weekend away with my family. But what I didn't expect was how much I would grow in the process. I've learned how to design, how to market, how to write listings that actually convert into sales. But more than that, I've learned how to show up even after a listing flops, when no one favorites my items, and when I've spent hours creating something that gets 0 sales and 0 views. Etsy has taught me how to problem solve, how to adapt, how to lead, and not just in my shop, but in my life. It's made me more confident, more patient, and honestly, more proud of myself than I've been in a long time. And that's the part most people don't talk about. We focus so much on the numbers, how much you made this month, how many sales do you have, what's your conversion rate? But the real win is who you become by sticking with it, even when quitting would have been way easier. So yes, I love making money from home, but the real power in starting an Etsy shop is way more valuable than that Tuesday payout. And that brings us to brutal truth number 9. Everyone is posting their wins. You are not seeing their flops. It's easy to feel like you're the only one struggling, especially when you scroll through social media or Etsy forums. You see screenshots of 100 sales in their first month, or they made $1,000 in one weekend. Meanwhile, you're sitting there wondering why your listing only has 4 views. But the truth is, you are not seeing the full story. You are seeing someone's best moment, not the late nights they stayed up making listing photos or the weeks that went by without a single sale. I can't tell you how many sellers I've talked to that also started their Etsy shop confused, overwhelmed, and questioning if this was even going to work. The difference is they didn't quit in the quiet phase. They just didn't post about it. And to be honest, I used to get caught in that same trap. I'd see someone else's growth and think, what am I doing wrong? But thinking like that is a distraction. You're comparing your day 10 to someone else's year 3. They are not doing better than you. They are just further along. Everyone you admire went through a slow sales period. They just weren't on social media to talk about that part yet. So if you've been telling yourself that they're doing something that you're not doing, then it's time to hear brutal truth number 10. If someone else can do it, so can you. I'll never forget when I was sitting on the couch scrolling through Etsy listings and I was thinking things like, how are they doing this? How are they making sales every single day? They must have a background in design, a marketing degree, or way more time than I do. And for a while, I let that voice convince me that I was not like them, that I was behind, that I didn't have the skills or the experience I needed. But now I'm one of those shops where people are sitting at home wondering the same thing that I used to wonder. And I wish I could go back and tell that version of me, they're not special, they're not lucky, they just didn't stop. Because that's the truth. Every successful seller you see on Etsy was once where you are, but they kept showing up, they figured it out as they went along, and that's exactly what I did. And if I can do this without a design background, without ads, without social media, just working in early mornings and during nap times, you can do this too. You don't need perfect branding. You don't need an SEO strategy. You just need to believe that this is possible for you right now without any design background, marketing skills, anything like that. Because the only thing separating you from the people that you look up to is time, action, and the willingness to keep going. And that leads us to brutal truth number 11. Surviving the no sales phase is your real test. There's a phase in almost every Etsy journey that no one talks about. It's quiet, discouraging, and honestly, it's the phase that makes most people quit. It's that stretch of time when your shop is live, your products are listed, you've put in the time, the energy, the hope, and still nothing happens. No notifications, no sales, just silence. I remember checking my phone constantly, waiting for that first sale to come through. I would refresh my dashboard way more times than I'd like to admit. And I would try to act like I wasn't discouraged when deep down, I genuinely just wanted to quit. And that was the real test. Because it's easy to keep going once you're making sales. But the people who succeed are the people who keep showing up before the results show up. The no sales phase isn't proof that you're failing. It's proof that you're committed to the process even when it looks like it's not going to work out for you. So if you're in that season right now, you are definitely not alone. This part is hard, but it is temporary. Your job isn't to go viral. It's to outlast this phase long enough to get those daily sales. And you will see results so much faster when you know about brutal truth number 12, master Etsy before jumping onto another platform. At some point, you're going to feel the pull to do more. Create a Pinterest account, build an email list, post on Instagram, try TikTok, maybe even start a Shopify store. And I get it because I felt that too. You start thinking, if I get on more platforms, then I can make more sales. But here's what I had to learn the hard way. Spreading yourself too thin does not grow your business, it just wears you out. There was a point when my Etsy shop had finally started hitting consistent $1,000 months, and naturally I thought to myself, okay, cool, what's next? So I opened a Shopify store. I told myself, if Etsy is working this well, then if I can get more people to see my products, then I can make more money. So I started my Shopify store, promoted it on Instagram, TikTok, to my email list with over 3,000 people on it. And month after month, that Shopify store brought in about $200. Meanwhile, my Etsy shop that I was completely neglecting was still making over $1,000 a month. And that's when I realized it's not about having more platforms. You have to have the skills to make those platforms work. Marketing on Instagram and TikTok is a skill. Sending emails that convert into sales is a skill. Setting up a Shopify store that takes buyers on a journey from who the heck is this person to here's my credit card information is a skill. I was spreading myself too thin trying to learn all of these different strategies at one time. And what I should have been doing was doubling down on Etsy, which was already working and I was already mastering that skill. And so here is what I tell my students when they start making sales and they want to know what's next. I tell them that adding more platforms does not equal more money. Focus on what is already working and do more of that. Master the skills that are going to make you more sales, like product creation, optimizing your listings, improving your listing photos, and understanding your customer. Because once you master those skills, they will transfer over into the next platform that you want to learn. But skipping ahead is just going to slow you down. So if you are tempted to add in more platforms, I want you to slow down and master Etsy first. Then and only then add more platforms and build from there. But at some point, you have to do brutal truth number 13, which is stop learning and start listing. There comes a point where you have to ask yourself, am I building a business or just collecting a lot of information about how to build a business? I used to think I just need one more thing before I could start, one more course, one more tutorial, one more free guide. But honestly, that was just fear. Learning felt productive, but it was just delaying the uncomfortable part of putting myself out there, which is how you actually make money. So you do not need more tutorials, you need momentum. Your first listings will not be perfect. Your photos may look pretty bad. Your SEO may not work at first, but you will learn faster by doing these steps and taking these actions than you will by just watching other people show you what to do. So you get better by doing, not by consuming. So if you've been stuck in the planning phase, this is your sign. You don't need more information. You need to put the information you've already learned into action. Open your shop, host a listing, improve it later, because you can't grow something that doesn't exist yet. And the truth is, you don't need to have it all figured out to start. You just need to start. So give yourself permission to start messy and to learn as you go, because confidence comes from taking action. But getting started is just the first step. Sticking with it long enough to make sales is where most people struggle. And in this video, I show you exactly what to focus on the next 90 days so you can start making sales faster.